Hey guys, tonight we're going to time travel back to a chilly, mist-draped courtyard in 12th century Kaifeng, the imperial capital of the Song Dynasty. You're not a warrior or an emperor or even a poet. No, you're something much more perilous, a mid-ranking bureaucrat. Which means, of course, that your morning begins long before the sun even considers showing its face. The courtyard stones are still damp with the memory of last night's fog. You shuffle out from your chambers, hair still pinned up in a scholar's topknot, eyes half glued shut. Somewhere in the shadows, a rooster debates whether it's even worth crowing yet. You'd agree. But you don't get that luxury. You've got a meeting with Millet Porridge, and it's not going to wait. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pad through the stone corridor, passing servants already fussing over coal braziers and warming pans. One boy is arranging jujube slices in concentric circles for an elder's tray. You pretend not to notice. It's not your place, but you do notice that they're using the good porcelain. Interesting. Your breath puffs little clouds in the morning air, mingling with the faint steam wafting from the kitchen block. You can already smell the rice starting to bloom in the clay pots. A hint of fermented tofu tickles your nose. You're both hungry and dreading it. You step into the side chamber, where you're meant to prepare for the day. A ritual that for Song officials looks suspiciously like a silent staring contest with your own reflection. A silvered mirror rests on the vanity. You glance at it. Your eyes are puffy. You didn't sleep well. Maybe it was the draft. Maybe it was the poem you couldn't finish writing. Or maybe it was that strange dream about being demoted to canal inspector. Again, the process of rising isn't about waking. It's about re-entering your role. You're not just putting on garments. You're reactivating an entire persona official of the 9th rank Assistant Recorder Ministry of Rights. It sounds important. It mostly involves copying reports and nodding at the right moments. Outside, someone rings a soft chime. Not a bell, mind you, that's reserved for ritual summons. This is more of a please begin to consider rising if you haven't already sort of chime. Passive-aggressive like all good bureaucratic communication. Back inside your room, your robe hangs neatly on a carved cedar rack. A junior servant silently folds it open for you. It's a pale indigo hue today, which says, I'm alert, but not a threat. The silk is cold against your skin. The robe's embroidered edge tells others you passed the imperial examination. Barely, but no one needs to know that. It also reminds you that your breakfast performance might be watched, noted, and possibly used against you in a future promotion dispute. Because here's the thing, no one tells you about Song Dynasty morning's breakfast is surveillance. You cross the courtyard toward the communal hall. Steam clings to the wooden eaves curling upward like polite conversation. The steps are slightly slippery from condensation, and you make a mental note to request sand be scattered. But not today. Not before you've eaten. Inside the breakfast hall, other officials are beginning to trickle in. Some still yawning, others already pretending they've been up meditating since moonrise. One ambitious junior is loudly quoting Confucius about moderation while pointedly skipping the fried dough sticks. You roll your eyes. Interns. The low tables are set. No chairs, of course. This is a kneeling affair. cushions lacquer trays, and all the formalities of a meal that masquerades as mere sustenance while being, in truth, a social gauntlet. You settle into your usual place, mid-tier, close enough to overhear senior gossip, far enough not to be noticed if you accidentally mispronounce sea cucumber. A small ceramic bowl is set before you, empty for now. It's waiting for the first dish, the humble yet highly political porridge. You inhale deeply. The smell of roasted barley, aged ginger, and a distant whiff of dried scallop. It's all beginning. The orchestra of spoons and side-eyes. The grand opera of bureaucratic breakfast. Historians still argue whether these elaborate morning meals were mainly functional or performative. Were officials genuinely fueling their minds for a day of scholarly service, or just rehearsing for their next subtle power move with a ladle and a side of pickled radish? Either way, you're here, you're hungry, and that first scoop of congee better not be cold. The servant approaches with the reverence of someone carrying sacred scripture. In his hands, your robe's outer sash, and more importantly, the lacquered tray that holds today's breakfast setting. One tray per official. No mixing. That was decreed after the great mustard paste incident of 1103, don't ask. You rise and let him tie the sash across your chest, the fabric stiff with starch and woven symbolism. The colors, the length of the trailing ends, the number of knot loops. Everything signals something. Even the way the sash crosses your left hip says, this guy understands policy, but isn't ambitious enough to backstab. Robes in the song court are like peacock's tails, pure performance, purely exhausting. This morning your sleeves keep brushing the table edge, threatening to dip into the sweet bean sauce. You fold them back with the practiced elegance of someone who's done this 1,000 times, mostly to avoid making the laundress cry. Across from you, Magistrate Joe adjusts his collar 3 times. You pretend not to notice, but it's the 3rd time this week. Either he's developing a rash or he's waiting to be asked what's wrong. You don't ask. That would obligate conversation, and you're still waking up. Now, the real ritual begins. A junior server steps forward with a steaming porcelain bowl of congee. Not just any congee. This is millet and white rice with slivers of mushroom and a single chrysanthemum petal floating on top. You nod politely. This is the safe version. Nothing too flashy. Appropriate for your rank. Higher-ups, meanwhile, get the deluxe versions. 1 tier above you gets dried abalone mixed in. 2 tiers above bird's nest. And the top ministers those smug mandarins near the center. Rumor has it, their porridge contains flakes of edible gold. Completely tasteless, absurdly expensive. And as one commentator put it, less nutritious than regret. Historians still argue whether edible gold was used for health symbolism or simply to remind everyone who controlled the treasury. You suspect it's the third, but you focus on your own bowl. Modesty is survival. As you stir your congee gently, you overhear a whisper from the adjacent table someone's been promoted in the Ministry of Public Works. You keep stirring. Someone else quietly adds that the man's father-in-law is friends with the regional tax auditor. That tracks. The texture of your porridge is excellent. Creamy but not watery. Thick enough to suggest quality rice, thin enough not to choke on. You take your first bite. Warmth spreads through your chest like a sleepy sunbeam. For a moment you let yourself enjoy it. Then Magistrate Joe slurps. It's a deliberate slurp. A power slurp. A notice-me slurp. You pretend not to flinch, but internally you mark it. This is breakfast theater, and Joe wants an audience. You counter by picking up your ceramic spoon with extra grace, letting the morning light catch the curve. Then, without haste, you lower it into the bowl and raise it to your lips with the kind of poised efficiency that says, "Some of us don't need sound effects to be respected." Across the room, someone chuckles softly, almost imperceptibly. "You've won this round." Joe goes quiet. Porridge, you see, is not just food. It's a message, a subtle, starchy telegram. The ingredients, chosen to balance your inner chi. The consistency, a reflection of household management. The garnishes, political statements in sesame oil. One time someone added chopped scallions to their bowl without checking the provenance. Turns out the scallions were from the estate of a disgraced former magistrate. Scandalous. He didn't get invited to breakfast for a month after that. Another time, someone dropped an egg yolk into their congee. Raw. On purpose. Said it was a foreign trend from the South. He now manages canal repairs near the border. Coincidence? Probably not. This is why your household steward spends hours planning your breakfast rotation. It's not just about nutrition. It's optics. Harmony. The art of being just interesting enough to be noticed, but never memorable enough to be envied. You look up and meet eyes with Minister Han, who sits 2 ranks above you and eats with unsettling stillness. His bowl is untouched, his spoon resting. He's watching. You return to your congee with renewed concentration, adding 1 shred of preserved ginger from your side dish tray. Carefully, as if it were a diplomatic envoy. This is the part they don't teach you in the civil exams. You can recite the classic of filial piety backward, but if you put the wrong pickles on your rice, your career trajectory evaporates like morning mist. And now the servers return, lifting the trays and rotating them out. 1 bite left in your bowl. You finish it with dignity, no scraping. Scraping implies desperation. You rise slowly, palms resting on your knees, and bow slightly as your tray is removed. The next course is coming, but the robe is heavy now. The sash pinches slightly, the sleeves weigh with condensation. Still, you sit tall, because breakfast is just getting started, and you're not even halfway through the menu. The congee may be cleared, but the battle is far from over. In the ever-unfolding morning opera of song bureaucracy, we now turn to the stage of baozi, those soft, pillowy steamed buns that look innocent but conceal both savory secrets and subtle statements. You hear them before you see them. The unmistakable hiss of bamboo steamers being opened, followed by the quiet rustle of linen cloths peeled away. A moment later, a procession of attendants carries in towering stacks of circular baskets, each layer holding a different variety of bun. The aroma drifts through the breakfast hall like a heavenly mist laced with warnings. You brace yourself. The first basket lands on the table nearest the chancellor, a senior official with eyebrows so long they appear to whisper secrets to his ears. His tray receives the rarest offering buns filled with minced crab claw lotus paste, and just to prove they could pearls boiled until soft. You can't taste money, but you can definitely chew it. Your tray is more modest. 2 buns, one filled with pickled turnip and ginger, the other with red bean paste. A classic pairing. Safe, respectable, entirely within expectations for your salary tier. Now comes the trick, which to eat first. You reach for the turnip bun, a conservative choice. But then you hesitate. Your colleague to the left, Warden Liu, picks up his red bean first. Interesting. He glances sideways. You glance sideways. It's a game of steamed bun chess, and he's made the first move. Historians still argue whether these seemingly trivial breakfast decisions actually impacted court dynamics, or if later scholars simply over-romanticized a bunch of men stressing out over root vegetables. Either way, you're not taking chances. You go with the turnip. The bun is soft. The filling warm, the flavors subtle. Sweet, salty. Just enough umami to make your tongue sit up politely, but not dance. You nod slightly in appreciation, which is both genuine and strategically visible. Across the room, someone coughs. Not a "I'm sick" cough. A "listen up" cough. You glance discreetly and spot official Wren 3 levels above you, known for his dramatic throat clearing, unfolding his napkin with the flair of a stage magician. He unveils his bun selection, mung bean and quail egg. An unorthodox move. Bold. Potentially risky. You hear a quiet intake of breath 2 tables over. This is the breakfast equivalent of proposing a tax reform bill mid-conference. And then comes the commentary. The bun stewards begin whispering to one another, pretending to adjust table settings. You catch snippets. Quail eggs. Not in season, are they? One murmurs. Unless imported from Lingnan, replies another. It's not gossip. It's surveillance. And you sip your jasmine tea carefully to stay out of it. But not everyone shares your caution. Magistrate Joe. Yes, the same one who power slurped his porridge has apparently chosen a bun filled with chopped eel and chrysanthemum leaf. You blink. That combination hasn't been fashionable since the Empress Dowager's ill-fated tea banquet 7 years ago. Even the stewards wince. You pretend to adjust your sash and lean slightly away. One must create distance even symbolically from culinary recklessness. Still, part of you admires the audacity. These buns, you realize, are more than breakfast. They're coded messages. A crab bun says you have access to river licenses. A sweet custard bun suggests family ties to southern sugar traders. A plain meat bun. You're either deeply humble or broke. Your second bun. The red bean rests in your palm like a quiet promise. You take a bite. It's perfectly warm, the paste silky with just a touch of honey. Comforting. You almost forget there's a civil service exam being held next week that could shuffle the ranks. Almost. Warden Liu raises an eyebrow. He's noticed your choice. He nods, just slightly. An alliance, perhaps. Or maybe he's judging your bean paste technique. It's hard to tell with Liu. Meanwhile, at the head table, Chancellor Eyebrows signals for a third bun. Third bun. Everyone sees it. Everyone pretends not to. To request a third serving before the broth course, brazen. A declaration of dominance. It says I control policy decisions and my digestive tract. One steward scurries to oblige. Another trips slightly over his own robe in haste. You can practically hear someone's promotion evaporate. Across the hall, an intern bites into a piping hot custard bun and yelps softly. Poor timing. Bad optics. Everyone avoids eye contact as he wipes custard from his chin. That boy will be managing irrigation budgets in the outer provinces within the month. You finish your red bean bun with all the serenity of a Zen monk. Fold your napkin precisely. Set it to the left of your tray, never the right. Only traders and southerners fold right. Just then a bell chimes. Soft melodic. The buns are being cleared. You watch as they vanish into steaming carts, their secrets sealed once more. In their place comes the next course soup. But even as the scent of broth begins to drift through the air, your mind lingers on those 2 buns. Humble, reliable, just sweet enough. And maybe, just maybe, symbolic of the kind of official you're trying to be. The soup arrives in silence. No fanfare, no clatter. Just the gentle thud of lacquer lids placed before you. like sealed scrolls waiting to be deciphered. This is not your average soup. This is fish head broth infused with ginger-aged tofu skin and a diplomatic level of discretion. You wait 3 heartbeats before touching the lid. Everyone does. It's one of those rules never written but universally obeyed. You lift the cover carefully, letting the steam rise like incense at a shrine. The smell hits immediately savory oceanic with an undercurrent of medicinal root. Comforting but serious. The color is a rich amber translucent enough to see the sliver of white fish meat curled at the bottom. You stir it once slowly, never twice. Twice implies dissatisfaction. This broth, this tang is not just about taste. It's about posture. Every sip is a chance to demonstrate restraint, cultivation, and critically your place in the ecosystem of court life. You bring the bowl close. Don't lift it with both hands, only peasants and poets do that. One hand steady, one elbow barely bent. The first sip warms your entire torso. It tastes like long meetings' old scrolls, and the inside of a cabinet where someone stored ambition. But there's a hint of spice barely noticeable, like a scandal that never quite made it into official records. You swallow gently. No slurping, not during soup. Soup is sacred. Soup is diplomacy. Across the room, official Wren has begun sipping his with the calculated precision of a man who once delayed a marriage proposal to perfect his tea-whisking technique. He pauses after each mouthful, placing the bowl down like a letter being submitted to the emperor himself. Meanwhile, Magistrate Joe, our friend with the dramatic tendencies, drinks with audible satisfaction. A low hum escapes him on the 3rd sip. You wince. He's doing it again, calling attention to himself via lunch. Historians still argue whether Joe's style of eating was considered uncouth at the time or merely regional flair. Some records suggest a southern origin where louder dining was considered evidence of good appetite. Other sources claim he simply enjoyed being annoying. You keep sipping, aiming for the quiet sweet spot between invisibility and authority. Just enough presence to remain part of the table's inner rhythm, not so much that you disrupt it. The server brings a small side dish, a curled leaf of pickled mustard green resting beside a single lotus seed. Minimalist symbolic. The mustard green for clarity, the lotus for detachment. It's less a garnish, more a parable. You nibble the mustard leaf and let the saltiness reset your palate. A flavor like old secrets and preserved disappointment. It's bracing and weirdly perfect. The conversation around the room stays subdued. Everyone is focused on sipping. But that doesn't mean there's silence. No, there's a language being spoken, one of glances, pauses, and the occasional cough punctuating an unspoken tension. It's an opera of restraint conducted entirely with soup spoons. Just then, someone at the senior table gently sets down their bowl before finishing. A subtle act. It says, "I have enough." Or perhaps, "This soup is beneath me." Or maybe even I'm sending a signal to my cousin in the Ministry of Rights. Interpretation varies. Warden Lou finishes his soup a beat before you. His bowl lands with a gentle click, inaudible to most, but not to you. He looks ahead, not at you, but you know he knows you heard it. A tiny bone broth-sized challenge. You raise your spoon and match his pace, finishing within a breath. The politics of pacing. No one tells you about that either. Across the room, one young official pretends to choke slightly on a fishbone. Not badly, just enough to attract concern. A woman in the corner sends over a napkin, and he bows dramatically in thanks. You note the exchange. That's not just a napkin. That's an alliance. The soup dwindles. Your bowl is nearly empty now, just a few grains of rice from the congee having snuck in earlier. They rest at the bottom like refugees from the last course. You scoop them up discreetly and finish. There's a small satisfaction to it. Completion. Closure. A warmth that isn't just physical but also social. You've made it through another round without embarrassment, without excess, without being noticed for the wrong reasons. A junior attendant appears at your elbow, bowing low. You nod once, and he removes the bowl like a ghost, with perfect timing. He leaves behind a new dish, 3 tiny cups arranged on a red lacquer triangle. Tea is coming, but before the first cup is poured, you glance around the room. There's a change in the atmosphere, something less rigid, less sharp. Soup softens everything, even ambition. You take a long breath. Ginger soy and something faintly herbal cling to the air. Outside, the morning mist is beginning to burn off. Sunlight slants across the floor, illuminating flecks of steam like drifting feathers. You don't smile, but you don't scowl either. You've survived the broth, for now. The tea service arrives like a diplomatic envoy, quiet, elegant, brimming with layered meaning. 3 cups, 3 infusions, 1 chance to not ruin everything with a sneeze. The first thing you notice is the heat, not just the temperature of the tea, but the low radiating warmth of attention. Eyes drift your way casually, of course, but deliberately. Because tea, unlike soup, is interpreted, not consumed. The cups are arranged before you in a perfect triangle, each one painted with faint plum blossoms like a whisper of spring. The tea inside Longjing Dragonwell from Hangzhou, a subtle flex, not too rare but high grade enough to indicate refined taste. And more importantly, access. Your hand hovers over the first cup. This is the first pour. The freshest leaves, the lightest body. It's meant to be floral grassy, a little arrogant. You sip gently. It tastes like moss on a clean stone and a rumor that hasn't quite formed yet. To your left, Warden Liu is swirling his tea, not sipping. Interesting. To swirl is to signal restlessness, or boredom. Or maybe he's airing out grievances metaphorically. You keep your cup still. Across the room, Magistrate Joe has downed his first cup entirely. No pause, no appreciation. Just gone. One swift gulp. You wince internally. Somewhere a tea master's ghost just sighed. Historians still argue whether tea etiquette in the 12th century was codified or evolved through imitation. Some say the number of sips per cup was standardized by an obscure Tang-era manual. Others claim it was all improvisation based on weather guests or how much you disliked your supervisor. You take another sip slower this time. The bitterness creeps in now, barely noticeable, but there. Like ambition. It lingers just beneath the floral notes. The second cup arrives. Re-steeped leaves. Stronger, earthier. This cup has body. It says, "Now we're serious." You smell it first, more roasted, less delicate. You sip. This one tastes like bark and late decisions. Heavier. Grounded. It sits on your tongue like the preamble to a policy reform. Around you, conversation is blooming softly. Topics range from poetry to bridge repairs to, of course, who brought what gift to whom last week. That last topic flows with extra heat steeped in veiled judgment and chrysanthemum metaphors. A voice from across the table. Did you hear Minister Shen gifted a scroll of Dufu poems? Hand-copied. Another voice, but not sealed in vermilion. So, not a true gift. You nod solemnly as though pondering the implications of this vermilion seal crisis. In truth, You're thinking about whether you have any dried persimmons left in your study drawer. Tea makes you crave snacks, forbidden snacks. As your colleagues sip their second cups, you notice tiny gestures, a tilt of the wrist here, a raised pinky there. All tiny, silent declarations. One official brushes his sleeve across the cup before drinking an old provincial habit meant to clear dust. But dust can also mean guilt or unclean favor. Subtle shade has been thrown. You raise your cup with practiced calm. Hold, sip, set down, breathe. Then the third cup arrives. The third pour is more symbolic than flavorful. The leaves are nearly exhausted now. The tea is pale, thin, translucent, like morning regret. But here lies the ritual's most powerful moment, because this cup isn't about flavor, it's about reflection. The third infusion tells the table I am still here, I am still observing, and I'm capable of patience. You sip. The taste is barely there, a suggestion of leaf, like a memory you can almost recall. But the temperature, still warm, still alive. And that's the point. In front of you, the server pours for Warden Liu, who does not drink. He leaves the cup untouched. A statement. Perhaps he's signaling discontent. Perhaps he simply dislikes third infusions. Or maybe he's saving his mouth for gossip. Magistrate Joe finally looks over, licking his lips. His third cup, empty. Already. Of course, you consider your own cup. You could drain it in one motion. You could pause and inhale, let the fragrance whisper old poems to you. Or you could fake a contemplative moment and earn extra gravitas. You go with the middle option, a long, slow sip. Eyes forward. Breathing steady. Tea master neutral face engaged. The server removes the tray. Tea is done, but its effect lingers. Your belly feels warm and precise, like it's wearing a tailored vest. Your mind is both alert and sedated, a dangerous combination. This is when the whispering starts. Someone at the far table leans in toward a colleague. You don't hear words, but you feel the ripple of information being passed. A promotion. A demotion, or someone's cousin marrying into a suspiciously well-connected family. You pretend to adjust your sash and glance at the calligraphy on the wall. It reads, "Still water reveals the sky." Classic. Also nonsense. The only thing still around here is the surface tension in everyone's teacups. And then, just as the murmurs start to build, a soft bell rings. The signal side dishes are coming. You exhale through your nose. Carefully, quietly, like someone who hasn't just spent 20 minutes parsing politics from leaf water. But deep down, you know that was no ordinary beverage. That was a test, and you somehow passed. You don't hear the side dishes before you see them, you feel them. A subtle shift in air, the scent of sesame oil turning sharper, more assertive. Then comes the procession trays upon trays, each holding an ensemble of pickled roots, dried seafood, marinated greens, and items that may or may not be edible, depending on your regional palate. This is the side dish hierarchy, and it is brutal. The tray set before you is modest but not embarrassing. 3 small porcelain dishes, carefully arranged. One holds pickled radish curls, yellow and sharp like little sunbursts. The second contains soy-braised peanuts, glossy and wrinkled. The third is a wild card fermented cucumber with dried orange peel. Bold. You wonder if the steward is testing you. The man to your right, Deputy Clerk Yi, gets 4 dishes. 4. Including the infamous salted plum, dark and shriveled like an ancient threat. A few murmurs follow. The salted plum is complicated. It can signify elegance or desperation, or even secret mourning. It all depends on how it's placed. His is centered. That's bold. To your left, Warden Lu's tray contains only 2 items, either an insult, a warning, or a dietary restriction. No one asks. Everyone notices. You begin with the peanuts. Safe. Everyone understands peanuts. They're honest, solid, slightly sweet, like a boring but loyal cousin. You spear one with your chopsticks and chew slowly, letting the oil coat your mouth. One nod. Minimal reaction. You're still in the game. Next, you examine the radish curls. Their brightness is almost aggressive. These are not subtle. These are look-at-me radishes. You eat them anyway. Sour crisp, a flash of vinegar that shoots straight up your sinuses like a bureaucratic reprimand. Then the cucumber. You hesitate. It glistens. It glows faintly green. The orange peel threads are whisper thin. You try a small bite. It's oddly floral, slightly fizzy. You blink. You're not sure if it's fermented or just enthusiastic. You glance at the steward. He glances back with the neutrality of someone who has no legal obligation to warn you. Classic. Historians still debate whether side dish placement followed a strict code or if stewards had creative license to reflect subtle inter-office dynamics. Some treatise fragments suggest that a pickled eggplant placed too close to the rice bowl implied disrespect. Others claim that's a mistranslation, and the real insult was offering pickled eggplant at all. Deputy Clerk Yi has begun stacking his empty side dish bowls in a triangle. You know this move. It implies efficiency and minimalism traits prized by the Chancellor's camp. You pretend not to notice, but your own dishes suddenly feel disorderly. You adjust them. Just a little. There. From the far end of the room, a server moves too quickly and drops a tray. A dish of vinegar peanuts clatters to the floor. A collective pause. All eyes shift. The official at that table, a mid-level registrar, winces. Everyone pretends they didn't see, but they saw. Breakfast is many things. Nourishment, routine. But it is not forgiving. You return to your last radish curl. It now tastes like tension. Warden Lu picks up his second dish, dried anchovies dusted with sesame, and eats one, then pushes the bowl away. A rejection. A message, perhaps about policy. Perhaps about anchovies. Magistrate Joe, now somehow in possession of a fifth side dish, loudly extols the virtues of seaweed. Reminds me of the coast near Yue Prefecture, he says. Before the sandbanks ruined it. This is a trap. Mentioning coastal erosion is code for complaining about the Water Control Bureau, which is under your ministry's jurisdiction. You glance up. Slowly. Cautiously. Joe is staring straight at you. Smiling. You chew your cucumber calmly and say nothing. He waits. You keep chewing. Eventually, someone else fills the silence with a commentary on calligraphy brush brands. Crisis averted. For now. The side dishes begin to disappear, removed one by a steward with hands like a cat burglar. Yours vanish last. A small detail, but one you note. Either they respect your deliberate pace, or they're testing your patience. The tablecloths are quietly brushed off, the cushions adjusted. Everything is being reset for the next course. You exhale through your nose. The radish still tingles. The cucumber's ghost haunts your upper palate. The peanuts were loyal to the end, but what lingers now more than taste is the awareness that side dishes speak louder than speeches. That a salted plum can imply betrayal, that anchovies can be a form of protest, and that in this court flavor is never just flavor. There's a brief lull, the kind that only happens between food and consequence. You lean back ever so slightly enough to let your spine realign and your knees breathe. The cushions underneath shift with a sigh of relief. But there's no real relaxation here. Not yet. Because now comes the part that's less about calories and more about currency gossip. Not loud, scandalous gossip. Oh no, that would be far too risky. This is breakfast gossip court-style soft, gliding phrases tucked into observations, whispered with the same rhythm as chewing and always just vague enough to be denied. You reach for your tea to appear occupied. It's cold now, the last steeping long forgotten, but it serves its purpose as a prop, something to hold while pretending not to listen. To your right, Deputy Clerk Yi is murmuring to a peer about the renovations at the governor's residence. No names, no dates, just renovations. You know what that really means. He's talking about bribes, or possibly affairs, or possibly both. In Song Dynasty code, renovations cover a lot of sins. You nod faintly as if pondering tilework. On your other side, Warden Liu murmurs something about a certain official's tendency to linger too long at the bathhouse. It's phrased innocently enough. He does seem very clean lately, but the meaning is obvious. Too clean is suspicious. Too clean is political perfume. You pretend to adjust your sleeve and catch a flicker of movement 2 tables over. A small gesture, a spoon tapped 3 times on a bowl. A signal. You're not sure to whom, or why, but you file it away. The tapping pattern means something. It always does. Historians still argue whether these silent gestures were part of an organized system or evolved naturally through court culture. One school believes they mirrored military semaphore. Another insists it was all improvised, fueled by fear and fermented bean paste. Across the room, a trio of senior scribes leans in close. One whispers something that makes the other 2 chuckle too quickly. You don't hear the words. You don't need to. Their glances are pointed, aimed directly at the junior official, who just yesterday wore mismatched socks to a memorial ceremony. He pretends not to notice, but the damage is done. A server walks by carrying a tray of unused teacups. He's walking slowly, too slowly, as if listening. You make a mental note. That one might not be a server. And then Magistrate Joe, who always knows how to turn silence into theater, clears his throat. Not just a "there's something in my throat" kind of noise. This is a statement. You brace yourself. The canal tolls, he says casually, are expected to rise next month. Curious timing, wouldn't you say? Several heads lift. A few spoons pause mid-air. This is not idle breakfast banter. This is a breadcrumb trail laid with surgical care. You respond the only way that's safe, with a very small shrug. Joe's eyes gleam. He's baiting you, of course. The canal tolls fall under your ministry's indirect oversight. And by saying nothing, you're neither confirming nor denying involvement. Perfect. One of the younger officials coughs suddenly, the sharp kind that implies nervousness. Joe turns his attention. You quietly take a bite of preserved plum from your personal condiment bowl, a bold move. But hey, it was there. The tartness hits your jaw. The shock is real. You blink rapidly, and Joe, sensing no drama, shifts focus. Victory. Meanwhile, gossip continues flowing like background music. Discussions about poetry competitions, someone's dog biting someone's wife's cousin, and the very curious case of Minister Han's disappearing niece again. No names, just certain family matters. The unspoken truth here is that breakfast gossip isn't for amusement. It's reconnaissance. These murmured stories will become reports. Reports will become rumors. Rumors will become decisions. Careers are sculpted from whispers. And every time you nod, smile, or remain silent, you are shaping your own narrative. A steward sets a small lacquer box beside you. It contains candied walnuts and a folded paper crane. Not uncommon, but unusual enough to notice. A gift, a code, a bribe. You leave it untouched for now. That's safer. At the neighboring table, someone suddenly laughs, a short, too loud bark that dies quickly. Nervous energy. He realizes too late that no one else is laughing. You recognize him, a recent transfer from the tax office, still learning the tone of things. Poor man. The laughter echoes faintly against the tile roof and vanishes. You drain the last of your cold tea and set the cup down slowly, deliberately. The gossip is tapering off now. Eyes are shifting to the door. The stewards are clearing dishes again, which means the next course is coming, and it'll be noodles. You gather yourself. Shake off the weight of half-truths and speculative betrayal. You've heard enough to stay ahead, or maybe just enough to stay cautious. And you've survived another round without saying anything that could be quoted out of context by someone ambitious with good calligraphy, which around here is what counts as a win. The sound of noodles precedes their arrival, not the slapping of dough or the clinking of pots. Those are distant kitchen echoes. This is subtler the hush that falls when noodle bowl politics enter the room. The stewards arrive in formation, each carrying a lacquer tray with a single porcelain bowl balanced carefully in the center. No extra dishes, no sides, just noodles, simple, elegant, and deadly. Your bowl lands before you with a soft clack. You look down. Wheat noodles, thin and long coiled in a light soy broth. Floating on top, a slice of braised tofu, a single stalk of chive, and a swirl of sesame oil. It's beautiful. It's balanced. And it's a test. You pick up your chopsticks with care. Everyone's watching everyone. The first move matters, because in this room how you eat noodles is more than etiquette. It's a metaphor. Long noodles represent long life or long patience, or long bureaucratic careers that never quite rise above mid-rank. Cutting them, biting them, even snapping one by accident. That could mean anything from impatience to treason. You separate the strands gently, like handling a very nervous eel. They cling, of course. Noodles always cling. You pause. Breathe. Let the broth cool for 5 more seconds. Then gracefully, steadily, you lift a small bundle and slurp. Quietly, the noodles slide in with practiced elegance. You chew once, then twice. Not too fast, not too slowly. The flavor is soft and comforting, soy ginger, a hint of star anise. It tastes like institutional memory. To your left, Warden Lou is struggling. His noodles are too thick. He's looping them around his chopsticks in a spiral. Rookie mistake. This isn't Italy. He bites halfway through a strand. It dangles. He tries to chew discreetly. Fails. A splash of broth hits his robe. You pretend not to see, but 2 junior officials across the room notice. You clock it. They exchange looks. One of them makes a note in a ledger. That's not lunch prep. That's record keeping. To your right, Deputy Clerk Yi has taken the opposite tactic. Slurp fast, finish early. His bowl is half empty already. He's signaling confidence, or trying to get out of the hall before someone corners him with a debt collection favor. You respect the hustle. And then there's Magistrate Joe, of course. His bowl somehow is different. He's received hand-pulled buckwheat noodles, darker and thicker with a faint glisten of chili oil. Fancy. He twirls one strand expertly, lifts it high above the bowl, and lets it spiral back down slowly. A few stewards glance over. You can almost hear the internal monologue. Is he allowed to do that? No one intervenes. That's the Joe effect. He eats his noodles like he's writing poetry, loudly. Historians still argue whether the noodle styles offered at court were based on rank, region, or secret allegiances. Some suggest that buckwheat meant ties to the northern provinces. Others claim it was just what Joe's brother-in-law's estate grew best. You return to your own noodles steady now. The broth warms your chest. The chive adds brightness, and the tofu has soaked up just enough flavor to be interesting but not boastful. But then it happens. A strand breaks, mid-slurp. You freeze. Half the noodle dangles from your lips like a broken promise. You chew quickly. Was it loud? Was it visible? Did anyone see? You glance up. Nothing, no reactions, except Minister Han. Across the room, watching. No expression, no movement, just watching. You nod faintly as if to say, yes. It snapped, and no, I won't apologize. He nods back. Barely. You don't know what it means. It might mean nothing. It might mean everything. Further down the table, someone coughs noodles into their sleeve. A beginner. He won't last the season. You reach the bottom of your bowl, where the broth has deepened. More soy, more oil, the essence of everything that's come before. You lift it carefully and sip. One gulp, not two. Two suggests greed. You set the bowl down, done. You survived the noodle round, but there's still the matter of omens. Some believe that broken noodles signal coming obstacles. Others claim it's good luck snapping the past to make room for the future. Your steward once told you to count them. Every whole noodle slurped is another month of calm. You never asked what broken ones meant. Maybe today is just a small misstep, or maybe Minister Han is about to mention it in passing to someone much, much higher up. The bowls are cleared. The steam fades. The air shifts. And now, as always, comes the chewing. Not of food, but of decisions. The noodles may be gone, but the tension in your jaw is just getting started. You're entering the next silent battlefield. The etiquette of chewing a performance so nuanced, so tightly coiled in the springs of ritual and restraint that a single audible crunch could unravel your entire week. This, of course, is the light refreshment course. Dried lotus root slices, crisp bean curd, skin, a few roasted chestnuts, and depending on your luck, maybe a shard of candied winter melon. All crunchy, all dangerous. A steward sets your tray down. It's beautifully composed. A pale blue porcelain plate with a delicate curl of pickled daikon on one side, a neat stack of lotus root discs in the center, and miracle of miracles, a single piece of dried mango nestled beside a sliver of candied ginger. You're not sure who authorized mango at a breakfast meeting, but you immediately want to thank them and/or marry them. But first the chew. You start with a chestnut. Soft, safe, the warm kind, steamed and peeled. Good opening move. No noise, no splinters. A gentleman's snack. Across the table, a junior official makes the bold decision to bite directly into a dried persimmon slice. The result? A loud crunch, the kind of crunch that silences birds. Heads turn, one eyebrow raises. Somewhere in the Ministry of Transport, his paperwork is now mysteriously delayed. You move to your lotus root. You've trained for this. Thin slice, tilted bite, slow compression. The outer crunch is subdued, the interior soft, like biting a coin made of memory foam. Success. No echoes. Warden Liu, meanwhile, goes for the bean curd. He chews and stops. Something stuck. Possibly a husk fragment. You watch him panic very slowly, his mouth shifting slightly like a man trying to solve calculus behind closed lips. He reaches for his tea. It's gone. He chooses dignity and swallows hard. victory uncertain. Historians still argue whether chewing sounds were a serious faux pas in the 12th century court or merely exaggerated by later moralists. One school points to an imperial edict banning radishes in court because they invite impolite mastication. Another insists that was just metaphor. For what no one knows, you nibble the mango. It's soft at first, then dense with sweetness. The kind that lingers behind your molars like a promise. You dare not chew too quickly. That's a rookie mistake. Mango demands respect. It's the literary classic of fruits. The ginger sliver comes next. Now this is a trick. Chewing it makes you look bold. Not chewing it makes you look weak. The secret chew once gently, then let the rest dissolve under your tongue like a line of poetry you half remember. You execute flawlessly. Magistrate Joe, of course, decides to cough directly after biting into a candied walnut. The timing is uncanny. The room flinches. Was it staged? A diversion? A warning? He covers his mouth, dabs at his lip with a monogrammed handkerchief, then says to no one in particular, "I find the silence of this course so expressive." You resist the urge to roll your eyes. Barely. Another steward passes with a bowl of sugar-glazed broad beans. You decline with a slight wave. Not because you dislike them, but because chewing those beans in a room this quiet would be social suicide. They're the castanets of the snack world. To your left, a young official finishes his daikon pickle, then smiles audibly. A single click from his teeth. That's it. That's all it takes. Several older officials shift slightly. He'll never know what doors that smile just closed. You glance at your own tray. Just one piece of lotus root remains. The final bite. The final sound. You take it. Clean, precise, crisp but not sharp. A punctuation mark, not an alarm. And with that, your tray is cleared. You've made it through the chewing round intact. Now you sit. Hands folded, posture soft. The cushions beneath you have warmed. The courtyard light has changed. Somewhere a breeze stirs the scroll hanging on the wall. The calligraphy reads, "Patience reveals the shape of wisdom," or something like that. Maybe it's about noodles. You're too full to care. You notice a steward pour water into a large porcelain basin near the back wall. That means the secret snacks are next. But before we get there, you let your jaw relax just slightly. Let the sounds of quiet chewing fade. Let the social calculations simmer down. You didn't crunch, you didn't slurp, you didn't draw blood from a ginger root. You survived the quietest, most dangerous course of all. And your rivals, still chewing on their mistakes. The basin is full. The water inside it stills like a mirror reflecting the latticed window behind it, and that's how you know. The secret snack drawer phase has begun. Now let's be clear, this isn't on the official breakfast protocol. There's no edict, no menu listing. This is shadow tradition. Centuries old, unspoken. A ritual of whispered indulgence among weary officials. Not everyone participates, only those who know. You reach under your low table and slide open the concealed lacquer panel. It's always been there, though technically forbidden. Inside, one solitary item wrapped in waxed mulberry paper, slightly warm, faintly fragrant. A sesame ball, perfectly round, the surface dimpled with golden seeds, crisp fried and just oily enough to make you consider your moral compass. You don't eat it right away. That would be desperate. First, you look around. Warden Lou's hands are tucked politely under the table. Suspicious. You squint. A faint rustle from his lap reveals a flicker of green matcha mochi. Lou's a matcha man. You knew it. Deputy Clerk Yi's expression is blank, but his shoulder twitches now and then. Classic chew-hiding posture, probably peanut brittle. Across the room, Magistrate Joe sits rigid and noble. No movement. But then he coughs delicately and you catch it. A whiff of osmanthus. He's smuggled in a flour jelly biscuit again. Of course he has. Joe would hide a sugar sculpture in his sock if it got him an edge. You gently press your sesame ball, testing the crust. It gives slightly, revealing a promising crackle. Inside is sweet bean paste, dense, rich, a flavor like childhood and minor tax fraud. Now comes the maneuver. You lift it slowly, place it just beneath the cover of your sleeve, and take one tiny bite. The crunch is exquisite. A soundless explosion. Inside, the paste is warm and slightly smoky. Not bad for something smuggled past 5 layers of protocol. Historians still argue about the origin of these drawer snacks. Some say they began as bribes from grateful petitioners. Others believe it was a rebellion by overworked scribes during the Northern Song who simply needed sugar by mid-morning or risked revolting. You take another bite, this time a little more confident. The sweetness melts into the aftertaste of ginger and vinegar from previous courses. Somehow it works. A quiet harmony, like when 2 policies contradict each other so perfectly they create a loophole. Just then someone sneezes. A single muffled "shmf." The room freezes. Was it a reaction to pepper or to being caught? Your eyes shift. At the far table, a red-faced junior scribe sits still, eyes wide. A crumble of sesame clings to his sleeve. He's new. Probably didn't time the chew-to-sneeze ratio correctly. Poor soul. Warden Lou lets out the faintest sigh. A sympathy sigh. Or a victorious one. Hard to tell. You finish the sesame ball slowly. Chewing leisurely. Thoughtfully. Like a man pondering grain quotas. No crumbs, no grease on your fingertips. Just the afterglow of indulgence. Then comes the signal. A steward glides past holding a fan not open but clasped. 3 taps against his tray. That's the cue. Snack time is over. Hide the evidence. You fold the mulberry paper and slide it back into the drawer. Empty now, but still ceremonial. You close the panel with a quiet click. The sound of self-control. From here, everyone sits straighter. The air thickens. The next course is technically fruit, but no one's thinking about peaches. This is the turning point, the moment where breakfast stops being food and starts becoming evaluation. Across the room, someone rises to stretch and ends up casually commenting on the Chancellor's new sandals. They were imported, apparently, from Fuzhou, woven by monks, or prisoners, or both. The point is they cost too much and someone noticed. You fold your hands, chin tilted slightly downward. The sesame warmth still lingers in your mouth. It calms you, grounds you, reminds you that while you may not wield power, you do wield pastry. Magistrate Joe raises his cup. An elegant morning, he says to no one in particular. Quiet. Almost too quiet. You keep your face blank, but in your head you're screaming, "You had 2 biscuits, Joe. We all saw the bulge in your sleeve." A steward enters and sets down small plates of peeled lychee and sliced pear. They glisten like jewels perfumed and cold. You nod. Fruit has arrived. Formal breakfast is nearly over, but you know better. The real digestion begins after the food is gone. Fruit at the end of a Song Dynasty breakfast is less a dessert and more a ritualistic cleanse. A palate reset. A return to clarity. Or at least that's what they tell themselves. Your plate holds 3 items, 2 translucent lychees, freshly peeled and perfectly chilled, 1 delicate slice of pear carved into the shape of a carp, and as a finishing touch, a sliver of candied pomelo rind placed at a deliberate diagonal like a calligraphy stroke. You eye the pear first. Always begin with the neutral. It's crisp, subtly sweet, a texture like diplomacy. Firm, non-threatening, and just wet enough to pass as sincere. Across from you, Deputy Clerk Yi does the same. A traditionalist. He chews once, twice, and then sets the slice back down on the plate with the solemnity of a monk who just finished reciting the Analects. To your left, Warden Lu skips the pear entirely and goes straight for the lychee. Bold. Lychee is sensual, messy. It stains, if you're not careful, both robes and reputations. You lift your own lychee. It glistens like a secret, its translucent flesh almost shivering. You bite. The juice runs, but not far. You tilt your head, catch it, contain it. This is the art. It's sweet. Not just sugary, but honeyed perfumed. A little wistful. Like a love letter you never sent. And then there's Joe. Of course, he's holding his lychee aloft, examining it with the intensity of a man searching for hidden meaning. Imported from Guangdong, he murmurs loud enough for nearby tables to hear. You can tell from the ridging. Someone hums in agreement. Another nods. Everyone knows Joe didn't import anything. He just wants you to think he knows someone who did. Historians still debate whether Guangdong lychees truly held higher status, or if the whole regional fruit hierarchy was invented by merchants to sell leftovers. A scroll from 1124 describes a scandal in which wax apples were passed off as imperial grade and triggered a minor duel. No fatalities, just indigestion. You finish the second lychee more confidently. No drips this time. The seed slips into the ceramic side dish beside your plate like a forgotten debt. Quiet oval, vaguely accusatory. Then comes the pomelo rind. This, more than anything, is a test. It's candied, yes, but bitter at its core. Astringent. Not everyone can handle it. Some nibble and grimace. Others pretend to enjoy it, hoping to appear worldly. You nibble. It's complex. The sweetness hits first a superficial flash like flattery at a policy meeting. Then the bitterness coils around your tongue, lingering, asking questions. You hold your face still. Do not blink. Do not gulp water. This is your stoicism exam. You pass. Magistrate Joe is still holding his rind. He's waving it like an aromatic fan. Pomelo from the southern gardens, no doubt, he says. They've finally stopped overwatering. You doubt Joe could identify a pomelo tree if it fell on him. You lean back slightly, fold your napkin, and place it neatly atop your empty tray. The fruit is finished. The palate is cleared, and with it the social battlefield resets. For about 30 seconds, because now comes the reckoning. A steward enters through the side door, not with food, but with a slate tablet and a brush. The evaluation is beginning. Not formal, not written, but noted, observed. Each official will be assessed based on how they conducted themselves during the meal. No rubric, no scoring, just impressions. Did you slurp? Did you hoard the soy-pickled mushrooms? Did you flinch when Joe mentioned canal tolls? Everything matters. The steward walks slowly between tables, stopping here and there to murmur something to another servant. You feel their eyes pass over you once, twice. They linger. Then move on. You breathe. And then, just when you think it's done, a soft tap behind you. It's one of the junior kitchen stewards. He holds out a small square of folded silk. A note. No words. Just a faint scent peach blossom and a pressed petal inside. You blink. This is unexpected. Across the room, a young scribe glances up sharply, then down again. Was it from him or someone else? You don't recognize the handwriting, but someone saw something, or knows something, or wants something. You tuck the note away. No reaction. Just a steady hand reaching for your tea, cold now but still fragrant. Around you, the hall begins to shift. Cushions are being fluffed. Bowls are whisked away. Robes adjusted. The breakfast is officially closing. But unofficially, the morning is just beginning. Your tray disappears. A steward bows. And somewhere behind you, Joe sighs again, this time sounding like a man who thinks he's won. You don't correct him. Not yet, because there's still leftovers to be dealt with, and letters to be sent. Your tray is gone, but the final act of the morning ritual still awaits leftovers and letters, two things that carry far more weight than their name suggests, because in this court nothing is wasted. Not food, not words, not opportunities. As stewards begin clearing the room in careful spirals, you reach into the inner fold of your sleeve and retrieve a small folded cloth. Soft silk, pale blue, stitched at the edge with a family seal. Inside is what appears to be a simple dumpling, cool now and slightly flattened by your earlier posture, but still intact, still useful. It's filled with minced pork and yam, not especially valuable. But the cloth, that's where the real meaning lies. You slip it into your sleeve again and rise, slowly, casually, as if your knees aren't numb and your foot hasn't fallen asleep. You take 3 steps toward the outer corridor, then pause beside the incense alcove. No one's watching, or at least no one looks like they're watching. You slide the dumpling into a small cedar box resting on a low shelf. Beneath it, a folded slip of paper already placed. You swap it with one from your own sleeve ink, still faintly damp. A message. Not a long one, just 6 characters. The Chancellor favors pairs again. It's enough. Historians still argue whether food smuggling served a practical function or was mostly symbolic, a way to preserve connections with far-off allies, cousins, or second wives posted in distant prefectures. Some scrolls mention coded recipes where the number of sesame seeds indicated troop movements. Others tell stories of poisoned bean cakes that ended family lines. These are mostly rumors. Probably. You return to your cushion now, neatly fluffed by a steward. No food remains, but a small sheet of yellow rice paper has been left in your place, your digestive note, as it's informally called. It's not for you. It's for your household steward. It lists what you were served, what you ate, what you left untouched, and this is the important part, what others noticed. You glance over it. Congee completed appropriate pace. Lotus root consumed with restraint. Mango finished. Joe observed. Single broken noodle, Minister Han present. Drawer opened discreetly, no sound. Did not respond to toll comment. Note delivered, no visible reaction. Not bad, not perfect, but defensible. You fold the note and slip it into the sleeve with the others. Your steward will analyze it later, compare it with the gossip digest, and probably suggest modifications to tomorrow's breakfast strategy. Perhaps fewer lychees. Maybe switch to the neutral plum next week. From the corner of your eye, you see Magistrate Joe whispering to a steward. He gestures subtly toward your table. You keep your back straight. Don't turn. Don't blink. Just let him wonder. A bell rings. Soft and high-pitched. The end chime. Officials begin rising in staggered order like a domino line designed by a very careful poet. No one rushes. No one lingers. You stand on the 3rd beat, exactly as your rank requires. One of the older clerks passes you and bows slightly more deeply than yesterday. Interesting. Maybe he heard something, or saw something, or read between the lines of your chewing. You bow back, even shallower. As you approach the outer gate of the hall, a steward stops you, not rudely, not urgently, just a hand held gently at waist height. He extends a small lacquer tray, a wrapped package. Your name written in charcoal on the paper's edge. You raise an eyebrow. He says nothing, just bows. Inside the paper, once you later open it in private, you'll find half a lotus bun and a tiny jade button. The bun is still warm. The button, you'll realize, is from a robe last seen on the governor of Liangzhou. You'll have to think hard about that one. But for now, you nod. Accept the package. Keep walking. You pass through the final curtain out into the sunlight. The courtyard has changed since you first stepped into it hours ago. The air is warmer, the birds louder. Someone has scattered camellia petals near the pond. A quiet gesture, decorative, or symbolic, or both. You make your way back toward your quarters. The food is gone. The tea is cold. But your mind is now buzzing with flavor, layered, coated, impossibly rich. And under your sleeve, a letter waits to be sent. Not just words, but strategy. By the time you return to your quarters, your legs ache in that oddly specific way that only kneeling and diplomacy can cause. You ease yourself onto the wooden bench beside the writing table. It creaks in sympathy. Outside, the camellia petals drift lazily across the courtyard stones. One of them landing perfectly on the toe of your shoe, as if trying to initiate a conversation. You ignore it. You've had enough symbolic communication for one morning. Now it's time for digesting before duty. A sacred slice of time between breakfast and bureaucracy, where everyone pretends to meditate but in truth just tries not to burp eel broth. You lean back. Just slightly. Enough to loosen your sash, but not enough to appear slovenly. Posture, even in solitude, is reputation insurance. On the low table before you, a brass incense clock curls a wisp of sandalwood smoke into the air. The scent is steadying, earthy, faintly floral. You stare at it. You're supposed to be centering your spirit, recalibrating your internal harmony, letting go of attachment. Instead, you're thinking about dumplings, specifically the one you sent through the cedar box. You wonder if it's been received, if the note was understood, if it will set anything in motion, or if it'll just end up feeding some steward's cousin. Historians still debate whether the digestion hour held actual spiritual value or was simply a cleverly disguised grace period for indigestion. A Song medical manual recommends 13 kneeling breaths and no conversation following any meal involving lotus paste. Another source, less reputable, suggests reclining on the left side to ease bureaucratic frustration. You try both. Your mind drifts back to the broken noodle. Did Han really notice, or was that just your paranoia flaring like a bad pickled radish? Back to the sesame ball. Did the steward's glance mean respect, pity, or curiosity about your molar strength? Back to the peach-scented note. Was that an invitation? A warning? A literary reference you failed to grasp? The incense thread breaks slightly, wafting toward you like a shrug. You decide not to decide. Instead, you reach for the lacquered box tucked discreetly beside your pillow. Inside, a brush inkstone and several half-used letters. You pull one out, smooth the creases, and begin rewriting. It's a reply to no one, to someone, maybe to yourself. You write, "The lychees were sweet. The silence was sweeter." Joe postured. Han watched. Lou is either cautious or constipated. I chewed precisely, and not a soul thanked me. Tomorrow we try plum. You pause. Add a postscript. Remind me to send wintermelon to the prefect's wife. Then fold the paper. Tuck it into the hollow spine of a medical text you never read. Someone will find it. Or not. That's the point. Outside, a bell chimes once. Time to return. The ministry awaits. So do reports, scrolls, petitioners, and one very loud abacus in the next office over. You rise slowly, adjust your robes, tie your sash tight again. The digestion phase is over, and you feel Full, not just from food, though certainly that's part of it, but full from the performance, the rituals, the dozens of tiny deliberate decisions that together spell survival. You step outside into the mid-morning haze. A steward nods, hands you your daily docket. You take it without comment. A few names jump out. So do a few absences. One in particular, Warden Liu. You don't smile, but your lip might twitch, just a little. You walk toward the office of petitions, robes rustling like gossip behind you. Someone bows. You nod. Inside the smell of ink and judgment. But you've already been judged. Over rice and tea and crunch. And you passed. Barely. Just the way you like it. You enter the office of petitions with the kind of practiced calm that only a full belly and a near-death noodle incident can grant. The clerks look up briefly, note your presence, and return to their scrolls. There's a kind of equilibrium here. One part reverence, one part exhaustion. This is where the true work happens, after all. Not in the throne room, not in the council chambers. Here among ink pots, blotting cloths, and the faint scent of moldy bamboo paper, you settle into your desk. It's still warm from the morning sun. A stack of new appeals sits at the top, tied with red string, a signal that at least one contains something political. Red means sensitive, or volatile, or occasionally just someone's nephew is angry. You open the first one with the same care you'd give a crab dumpling. Don't squeeze too hard, don't breathe too quickly, and be ready for something unpleasant to squirt out. But it's fine. Just a land dispute. Two brothers arguing over a hill. You glance at the attached map. Someone's drawn a rather optimistic mountain that looks more like a molehill. Classic. As you write the standard reply, this office appreciates your passion for elevation. A mediator will be sent. You realize you're still tasting the aftertaste of ambition from breakfast. It's not the lotus bun or the lychees. It's not even the hint of soy from the congee. It's that last exchange of glances before you left the hall. The unspoken verdicts passed in silence. The way Joe smirked without smirking. The way Han didn't speak, which somehow said more than a poem. And then there was that folded, silk-wrapped message, still unopened. You reach into your sleeve, pull it out. Pale cloth tied in a neat knot. You tug once. It falls open. Inside a dried plum. One, just one. No note, no signature. You blink. In breakfast parlance, a plum means many things. Patience, endurance, subtle acidity. But in court circles, a plum could mean favor, or reproach, or a memory. Or you stare at it for a moment, then because there's nothing else to do, you eat it. Soft, sharp, tastes like history. Just then your junior clerk knocks gently. Message from the Office of Water Control, sir. You raise an eyebrow. Joe's old haunt. Shall I read it? He asks. You shake your head. Later, after tea. You need a moment to absorb, to adjust, to plot your next 5 polite moves. The truth is, your morning isn't quite over. It never really ends. The food is gone. The trays have vanished. But what remains is the aftertaste. Not in your mouth, but in your posture, in the things unsaid, in the subtle flecks of your fingers as you return to your brush. You write another letter, this one shorter. The plum was received, the message unclear. Next time, apricot. You smile just a little. The bell for midday prayers sounds faintly in the background. You stand, stretch. Tuck the letter into the slit between desk and wall, your own version of diplomatic mail. Outside, the sun has shifted again. The shadow of the incense clock has moved 2 fingers to the right. Another official passes your doorway. He glances in, nods, keeps moving. You nod back, and that's how this world works. Bowls of soup, ribbons of gossip, chewed roots and unreadable fruit. You are not full anymore, but you are awake. You gather your scrolls. Brush off a crumb that doesn't exist. and head toward the next meeting where everyone will pretend that the morning was simply a meal. But you'll know better. Afternoon meetings blur together like ink left too long in the rain. You sit, you nod, you murmur phrases like expedite the memorandum and let us revisit the grain report after solstice. Your brush writes while your brain replays every flick of the chancellor's chopsticks. But eventually even bureaucracy ends. The sun begins its descent, leaking golden light into your study, as if apologizing for the rest of the day. The hallway outside grows quieter. Quills stop scratching. Sandals stop shuffling. The empire, for a moment, exhales. You retreat to your quarters again. Robe's looser hair slightly unraveled. The steward bows low and says nothing. He's trained well, or simply afraid of interrupting your thoughts. You sit down on the veranda. And now, as the first crickets begin to chirp, you finally allow yourself the final course, the wind down. You lean back into the worn cushion, the one that still smells faintly of cedar and old rice paper. The sky overhead is no longer the brilliant blue of proclamations and tax decrees. It's softened now, melting into a dusky watercolor of lavender and pale peach. The incense has been replaced. This one smells like rain on stone. Cool, quiet, not here to impress. You stretch your legs slightly, robe folding like lazy waves around your ankles. Somewhere behind you, a sparrow makes 3 short calls, then falls silent. It's been a long day for everyone. You let your gaze blur. Let the wooden grain of the veranda merge with the shadow lines from the lattice. Your thoughts begin to scatter gently like petals tossed from a scroll. You remember the warmth of congee, the sharp edge of pickled daikon, the silent applause of a perfect sesame ball bite, and that plum. You imagine it still resting in your hand, sticky and cold, a puzzle wrapped in flavor. What did it mean? Maybe nothing. Or maybe everything. Maybe you'll find out tomorrow. Maybe you already have. The breeze moves in again, softer this time. More of a whisper than a wind. You pull your robe a little closer and feel the weight of the day settle not heavily, but with a kind of quiet satisfaction. You've walked the tightrope of etiquette, balanced chopsticks and politics, sipped tea under surveillance, and somehow emerged unscathed. Sleep won't come quickly, but it will come gently. Let the rhythms of breath slow. Let your shoulders drop. Let the aftertaste of the morning fade into a softer sweetness. Less ambition, more calm. The moon hasn't risen yet. That's fine. There's still time. No more meetings, no more glances to interpret, just the soft hush of silk against skin and the echo of your own careful chewing. The empire is vast, but your world for now is small, safe, still. Close your eyes. Let the steam from a forgotten bowl drift one last time across your memory, and rest.